Hey, welcome to Hungry Nordic. I'm Amanda. Today I'm going to tell you all about my adventures in making lefse for the first time. But let me tell you what I'm actually hungry for at the moment is this cranberry orange bread. That's an experimental recipe that I made up and tried out last night. It actually turned out really yummy. Not perfect, as is the case with many experiments, but I'm very much enjoying it. Tell me, when I'm doing experiments like this, would you appreciate me grabbing the camera and showing you what I'm doing when I'm making these up? Also, would you be interested in trying out experimental recipes, helping me test recipes maybe for a cookbook? Leave comments down below, whether it's on the website or on YouTube, and let me know your thoughts. Now, my first attempt at making lefse. Let me back up a little bit, catch you up if you missed earlier videos from me. I am not an expert in making lefse by any stretch. I'm half Swedish American. I'm not very much Norwegian-American, and it seems like this is a tradition among my Norwegian-American friends to make lefse around the holidays. So I got this recipe from my friend Bethany Zill. It's the lefse recipes from her mom, Glenda Bertman, the original one with gluten and dairy in it, and then the recipe that she developed that's gluten-free and dairy-free. And it was a few years ago I finally got to try lefse, the gluten-free version, and now I tried my hand at it, even though I've never actually seen it made in person, so I was really nervous. I think the hard part is actually in the techniques, which is the case with many recipes. When you get a recipe from someone who's really used to making this, it's often their notes, and the recipe will have all the ingredients and then very short notes on how to prepare it. And it's how to prepare it that's the really hard part. So thankfully Bethany answered lots of questions for me. I figured out how to rice the potatoes ahead of time, and I actually made some oat flour, so it wasn't very fine grained oat flour, but I put old-fashioned gluten-free rolled oats into my food processor and pulsed it for like 20 minutes. Oh my gosh, I was so tired of pulsing oats, but it worked. 20 minutes later, I had a rough oat flour. I used that in this recipe. So let me dive in and tell you about this recipe. The ingredients: 5 cups of riced potatoes, 2 tablespoons sugar, a half cup of oil. I used grapeseed oil, a teaspoon of salt, 1 cup plus 1/8 cup tapioca flour, a 1/3 cup oat flour, 1 teaspoon baking powder, 2 tablespoons potato flour. All of these ingredients I stirred together until they were starting to be more evenly distributed, and then I just dug in with my hands and got it all really well mixed. I took that dough, covered it with a lid, and put it in the refrigerator for several hours. The longer it sits in the refrigerator, the easier it gets to work with. I got out my griddle and I heated it up to 350 degrees. I combined a little leftover oat flour with tapioca starch, stirred that together, and took a spoonful and put that on some parchment paper that I was using for rolling it out. I took a handful of the dough, smaller to start with, smaller amounts are easier to work with, and then I rolled that dough into a ball and patted it into a little round patty. I dusted it on both sides with the flour that I'd spooned out onto the parchment, and I used my thumb to crimp any cracks in the edges back in to try to minimize the cracking around the edges. Those cracks obviously don't affect the flavor, but they do make it harder to transfer it to the griddle without having it break or fall apart and wind up crumpling and piling on top of itself on the griddle. So with it in a nice circle and dusted with flour, I put the other piece of parchment on, and I used my rolling pin to roll it out evenly thin. It's important that it's even, that you don't wind up smushing the edge down really thin and having the center be thick. And I made it about, I'm guessing 1 millimeter thin once I got some practice. You can start with thicker. It does taste a little different, take longer to cook when it's thicker, but it's still yummy. Let's see. So I roll it out to about 1 millimeter thick, and I took the parchment paper and carefully peeled it up. I found that if I peeled the paper up and realigned it and then flipped it and peeled the other paper up and realigned it and gave it one final roll, that helped a little bit with creases that would form and also make it prone to tearing. Those creases in the parchment paper would just make these deep grooves. And it's really hard to transfer the gluten-free lefse to the griddle. As it is, deep grooves and cracks only make it harder. The parchment paper trick did work well for me though. Once I got the hang of it, yes, after a few failed attempts where I wound up with a pile of lefse pieces on the griddle. Once I got the hang of it though, I could take the lefse that had been rolled out and then I very quick flip it onto the grill. And after some practice, managed to get it onto the grill in one piece, all flat and nice, and then peel off that second piece of parchment paper. Then it cooked on the 350-degree griddle for about 3 minutes per side. Longer if you've got a thicker piece or if you like it a little crisper. Lefse is, from my experience, supposed to be a soft bread, so I was trying to make it not too crisp. And if you cook it less than about 3 minutes or so, or if you've got a thicker piece, it can wind up still doughy in the center. Sometimes I could manage to get one that was pretty evenly soft and cooked all the way through, but pretty much the best that I was coming up with on a consistent basis was slightly crisped edges when it was cooked all the way through in the middle. To help with those crisped edges, I put them in a clean dish towel and let them rest together, and the steam and the moisture that was in there kind of redistributed, and the edges that had been too crisp softened somewhat, so that was nice. To enjoy these, we had them alongside our dinner, the first batch that I made, and even wound up putting some of our dinner meat and veggies all together and rolled them up in the lefse, and that was really yummy. I wonder why no one is talking about using lefse with Thanksgiving leftovers, because Thanksgiving leftovers include mashed potatoes you should be able to make lefse from, and turkey seems like it would be great in there. Just an idea. Sounds great, and maybe we'll try that next year, because by next year maybe I will have forgotten how labor intensive the rolling out phase was. Man, that was a lot of work. But it was delicious. And the way my husband has always had lefse is with butter and brown sugar. Yum. I was introduced to it with cinnamon and sugar, so we did butter, brown sugar, and cinnamon. Delicious. They're also delicious on their own. I thought they had a little bit of a potato chip flavor. It depended on how crispy they were. Now, I'm going to get back to enjoying my cranberry orange bread, and I hope you enjoyed learning about lefse. I had actually a lot of fun, even though I was probably more worried than I needed to be about trying out this recipe. But that's often how it goes, is if I'm really worried about it and I put a lot of effort in ahead of time, it goes pretty smoothly. And if I don't respect the fact that it's a new recipe and I don't know how to make it and I just try and go into it without any preparation, sometimes I'm lucky, especially now that I've had more experience with these similar recipes, but sometimes it doesn't go so well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching my adventures in the kitchen. Leave a comment below what you thought of the lefse. Are you going to try it? And what do you think about hearing about my cranberry orange bread or other similar experimental recipes? Thanks so much. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Hey da!